Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio show. We learned a lesson today. And the lesson is don't run a pre-roll on YouTube. I did it last time, got away with it, but didn't get away with it this time. I restarted the YouTube stream. I think I tried to, but nevertheless, there you go. So if you are on, there you go. Looks like we got our YouTube back. Yeah, so it's been before we started doing dual streams, for those of you watching on YouTube now, before we started doing dual streams, I would do a pre-roll on the Stratosphere Lounge. It's a bunch of some of my favorite theme songs from TV shows, and then for Stratosphere Studio, I decided to go ahead and use the opening animations, and I didn't get dinged on it last time, but I did get dinged on it this time, so sorry about that, and we won't be doing that again. We'll stream it on Twitch because Twitch doesn't care. Basically, I never record it, because if I record it and then upload the recording, then I get another YouTube ding. But in any event, here we are. So a couple hours ago, we did a live stream of the DART mission. We hit an asteroid orbiting another asteroid, and that was kind of fun to watch. It really was just kind of cool to watch in real time. But this is the Stratosphere Studio show, and this is the show where we talk mostly about animation and the making of this science fiction project called The Colonies. So that's where we are today. Now, earlier today, just a couple hours ago, I posted on the Stratosphere Studio page thank you very much for the mods making their appearance there. I posted the first of these kind of walkthroughs I've used the term crowdsourcing before. It's not really completely appropriate, but it's close enough. So I sat back and said, okay, so what can I do to get people involved as quickly as possible? And that brought me to Space Engine. So I'll just say something about that real quick. So I've mentioned it before. There's this software on Steam called Space Engine. It's a real-world universe simulator. It simulates not only every planet, every moon, every asteroid in our solar system, but it has all of the actual stars in their right places. And those stars can generate procedural planets. So you've got a whole science fiction universe. And the best part of it is the physics and the optics are correct. So that means that if you land on a planet in Space Engine and you look up and see what you see, it's not going to be terribly highly detailed, but it's going to be, the rings are going to be where they need to be, everything. It's fantastic. So I did a 55-minute tutorial on that. So if you get a chance, if you haven't already, on the Stratosphere Studio page, right here on the Stratosphere Studio homepage, you'll be able to see Space Engine in action. It's the first of a series on how we're going to make this science fiction universe communicatable between us in Space Engine. So that'll show you how to get Space Engine up. I mean, we take it from scratch. We assume you don't know anything. Just right from the browser, here's where you go. Here's the URL. Here's where you click this, search for this, find it, install it, and so on. But we're getting some comments already saying those things were the sunsets were cool, and it was kind of fun to do. It was pretty cool. Kind of astronomical thing. So that's the first tutorial, is kind of how to navigate with Space Engine. And at the end of that first episode, we ended up going to one of many solar systems that we're going to be developing in more detail. This is called, I want to say, Ross 154. You'd think I'd have it memorized by now. It's a red dwarf star, and I picked it because it had 7 planets around it. Most of those planets have moons around it, and that seemed like a good number to do. So today we're going to have some real fun with what is the next aspect of this whole procedure, and believe it or not, that's naming. I was going to do some spaceship animations and show you some of that stuff, but in order to get those textures right, I need company logos, because when you stand on a street corner and the UPS truck goes by, you can tell it's the UPS truck because it's the one that says UPS on it. And ditto for everything else. So I need company names, and then once I've got a company name, I'm real good with logos and finding that, and then I can just kind of put that stuff together. So I realized I couldn't really even show like progress on any of these spaceship models unless unless I had names, and I didn't have names. So what I'm going to do on this episode, which will be relatively brief because my cat's a little sick and we did the earlier one, and plus our Stratosphere Lounge last Friday was 4.5 hours. Well, that's good to hear. Texican says he can do company logos. He's a vector expert. Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a really, really cool website that anybody can use, obviously. And it is an extremely sophisticated name generator. Now, a simple one is a good example of a simple one would be the one I found to do the Shakespearean insults on the D is for Dungeon thing. Basically, what they did with that is they took thou, which means you, and then they took a list of adjectives that Shakespeare used, and then another list of adjectives that Shakespeare used, and then a list of nouns that Shakespeare used, and you end up with, thou mewling, onion-eyed pigeon egg. And you can get some fun results out of that, but you can't get endless results out of that. And so I was very fortunate to stumble upon a procedural name generator. And we're going to, just for fun, we're not going to write these down, just to give you an idea of kind of the giggles involved here. We're going to use this to generate not only random names, we're going to use this to generate names that are the kind of things that we're looking for. So, first of all, I've got the link here. I'm going to put it in the YouTube and the stream and the Twitch stream, and that's going to take me a second, so just bear with me here. Here it comes for send it to Twitch, and to send it to YouTube, I have to open up whatever. Okay, I have to open up a web browser. Here it comes. Won't take long. Almost there. Fantastic. And here it is here. Now, this isn't much to look at, but believe me, it's pretty cool. So hopefully you guys should have that now. And now we can talk about what it does. It's a procedural name generator, and it uses something called Markov chains. And Markov was a linguist, and he had a really sophisticated sense of how languages work. So to make a long story short, what this does is it generates random names, but it doesn't generate them randomly. It does something much cooler than that. Just give me 1 second. I just have to adjust one last thing here, and I can get a little more screen space so I can see what I'm doing. What it does is it generates random names and random words, I should say, but it does it within the context of certain search parameters. So if you want to play along at home, you'll get different results because it is random. But I'm assuming that I just put the link in there so you could play with it later. It's probably much better just to leave it alone, and I'll play with it. So basically, here's how it works. I put my random name generating spectacles on here. So it says you can generate any word, and you can just hit the generate button. But before I do that, I'm going to go into settings. And if I go into settings, I see all of these things that are called data presets. It looks like there's 100 of them. And it defaults to animals. So just to show you how the thing works, let's just leave it on animals. Now, we have below that a couple of other variables. We have the length range of the word. I'm going to leave it for the time being on minimum of 5, maximum of 11 letters. We've got prior, which I'm not going to talk about. We've got a back off setting, which I will talk about, but not right now. It's got the number of words to generate. We're going to generate 100, and a max processing time, which is irrelevant because this thing goes so fast. So before I do anything else, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to generate random animal names in a length of 5 to 11 characters and with an order of 3. Now, the order is the thing that's important to understand. The higher the order, the bigger the chunks that this thing is going to try and put together. So when you get very high order and you try to randomly generate an animal name, you'll get a hippopotamus, elephant. But when you lower the order, it gets to play around. So with these presets, let's just see some generated animal names. We'll leave the back off first. Here we go. Here are some animals that you might find on your science fiction planet. A skingbird, a hedger, a guanacle, peaconda, a silisk, I'm skipping, a grout, an orange fly, a sakurana, a hedger shark, a marmouse, a bay silver, a pufflecoon, a codile, a gamel, a banda, a badge hog, a jackety, a pant squid, which is, dangerous. And again, I'm skipping probably half of them. A wolver, a gerane, and so on. You get the general idea. Walla, puffalo. These are a little too ordered, but they're not bad. And you have to just prepare yourself for the fact that when you hit that generate button, my experience is probably 9 out of 10 I don't use. Now, the cool thing is that you can add different data sets together, and that gives it a lot more to chew on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add American companies. So I'm going to get, what I'm looking for is a company name that has something to do with animals. It would be the kind of thing like a mega corporation that sounds like it would have something to do with animals. So I've now enabled animals and American companies. It's going to generate words from those two things. We'll leave the settings the way they are. We're going to hit the magic button, and I'm going to skim and see if I can find any science fiction-y names of of companies that sound like they deal with animals in one way or another. Motive. Some of these names are fantastic, by the way. Conda, Coral Group, Wolverswan, that's a little on the nose, Codile, Carink, Unicare, Chair, Lenergy, Crabbit, let's see, Identific, that's pretty cool. And you get the general idea. So I'm still just experimenting so you can see how it works. Taration. It's not really putting a lot of animal names in there because the randomness is too high. And that means the order is too low. And the back off generator, which is either off or on. If I turn the back off generator on, it uses an entirely different algorithm. So without having changed anything other than turning on the back off algorithm, again, I'm looking for animals and American companies. Let's generate some new ones here. See what we get. We get Sharky, Centology. Let's see. Genergy, as in gene energy. Genergy, fantastic. And it's still a little bit vague. We're going to get to stuff that's going to be a lot more on the nose. As I'm saying, I'm just kind of giving you an idea how this thing works. So what I'm going to do now is, since I'm not getting exactly what I want, I'm going to reduce the length of the word name because shorter words tend to be a little punchier. I'm going to go from 5 letters. I'm going to go from 3 letters to 8 letters, and I'm going to take the order up 1, and we'll try it again. Peafowls. This hasn't given us tremendous Falcorp. That's not bad. Falcorp, that kind of works for me. We'll take off the back off thing. We'll generate another batch. Again, I'm just scanning real fast. Kingbird. Let's see. Gallaby, maybe. Not really. So the reason these things seem kind of lame is because it's kind of a lame target. Let's pick a better target. So let's say that we have this Ross system, and my background on that would be it's been discovered by the European Space Agency, and so it's going to have European names, which seems reasonable to me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the data sets and we're going to select. I kept looking for English. I couldn't find anything English, but what they do have is places in Cumbria. Cumbria is part of what England was before it became England, and now we'll start to get some pretty cool things. So just with places in Cumbria, I'm going to use the random order thing. I'm at the random name generator. I'm at an order of 4, okay? And back off is an odd name. That's the name of the guy who developed the algorithm. So back off is off. What is this? I'm just being, somebody's throwing rice at me. So now we're looking for what sounds like English names for, let's say, settlements on top of, if you had settlements on a planet. Here's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to say if I had a map of this fictional world and I had it drawn out like a map, I want names that sound like they would appear on an English map. Okay, so let's see what we get. Places in Cumbria: Arlington, Grange, Fenton, Briar, Kington, Midge. I'm skipping a bunch, but I know what my ears tell me what seems about right. Thorpe, Glencarn, Highbank, Brunston, Hampside, Carrow, Carwick, Mockerbie, Woodland, Kirkland, Patterby, Allstones, Haverton, Grayston, Abbey, going as fast as I can here, Daleby, and I'm skipping the iffy ones, Bowlands maybe. Okay, Thwaite. Now, I'm going to do the exact same thing, not going to change anything. The order is going to be 4. That's fairly high order, 4. I'm just using English names in Cumbria, but this time I'm going to turn the back off algorithm on, and I'm going to generate another set. Here we go. When you get the combination right, you will immediately know it. There's an awful lot of this is just plain improvisation, but when you get it right, you'll see a list of names and you'll go, that's what I'm looking for. So here are some towns we might find on a planet that's been settled by British. Grangle, Hersby, some of these are repeats from before. Tarnside, Windscale, Brayston, Head Oaks, Berkerby, Thwaite, Brunston, Torp, Crossside, Harkerby, let's see, Bank Hill, Broome, Brayton, Burnsby, Haverton, Denton. Like I said, some of these are repeats. Honeston, no, that's not right. Forget that one. Highbank, Kelside, I think I said Thorpe before. Bootley, Westhead, Broomby, Warwick. That's just happened to come up because there's obviously a real Warwick. So those aren't bad. Now, those would be the kind of things you would see on a map. If we want to deal with dwarf moons, and there's a ton of them, right? So we want, I'm not going to lock myself into this, but I just thought as a general rule that the names, because there are so many dwarf moons, something like 80-something of them in just that one little type N system. So my feeling is keep the same thing. We want places in Cumbria, but for dwarf moons, we want real short names, so we're going to go from 3 to 5 or 6 letters. Let's just try 3 to 5, just for punch. Okay, we'll take back off, and we'll take the order down because with only 3 to 5 letters, you don't get a chance to really run those long strings. So I'm looking for quick, bitey little names for all these little moons like Phobos, Deimos, all of that other crap. Here we go. Ready? Here we go. And Kend, Croft, Wards, Fluke, Kale, Birth, Corby, Glay, Abbey, Bees, Cotby, Briar, Wall, let's see, Side, Lawnby, Adgar, Brown, Big, Penny, Fent. These are the kind of words I'm looking for. Fent, Lith, Croom. They have an English sound to them. Now we'll do the same thing again with the back off turned on because it does generate a remarkable difference. So again, just looking for potential names for small moons. And we're getting some great ones in the comment sections on both on YouTube and on Twitch. So here it is with the back off. Now these sound like the kind of things you would see on that orbital map that you're going to see when you get a look at that tutorial for Space Engine. So here's the name of some dwarf moons around a planet that was settled and surveyed by Brits. Alby, Bray, Rosby, Chale, Cotby, Berg, Corby, Hone, Hawn, Seath, Fluke. Be careful with that one. Some of these again are repeats in terms of Elton, Els, Egton, Seed, Glay, Ray, Tord. And if I take the order down even more so it gets even looser, then you get really weird stuff like Whiten, Bross, Lank, Kinby, Derby, Held, Bolm. You get the idea, right? So those are British sounding names. And there is another data set that we could add to this. It's not just places in Cumbria, but if we add, what is it, fells in Cumbria? Yes. So now it's got two different data sets to chew on, but they're both English data sets. So I'm going to increase the order very high here. Now I'm looking for the name of a planet, right? So I want something that sounds really kind of, established. So I'm going to go to maybe, 14 letters, high level of order, back off on, and I'm using places in Cumbria and fells in Cumbria, and these are the names we get. Hampsfield. Now with the back off on, this thing gets bizarre. I'm going to take it off. It's just too literal. We have a very high level of order, so let's see what it is otherwise. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Steel Knot, Rannerdale, Crossgate, Odendal, Burkhouses, Rampskill, Bonington, Morrowdale, Dentown, Waberthwaite, Bannerdale, Carrick. Get the idea. Patterthwaite, rather. Bretherhill, Great Cliff. That's a good name. I like Great Cliff. And so on. So you get it. So just to show you how different this thing can generate names, now let's say we want to go to and get some names of a place that was settled by the French. So we're going to turn off fells in Cumbria and places in Cumbria. And when you do that, when you turn them all off, it defaults to animals coming on, so you got to be a little careful about that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find French forenames. Okay, turn animals off. So this is just going to mix up French first names. And we'll leave the order up relatively high. Shorten it down to maybe 11 words. We'll take the order down to 4. We'll turn back off on. So now we're looking for French names. for places in a French colony. Same exact software using different data set. Here we go. Gaetan, Andréane, Carlette, Sergette, Robertine, Alicine, Jean-Michel, Jean-Francois, Yanni, Marion. It's a little too literal. I think I have the order up too high. Let's turn back off and see what we get. But those weren't bad. Lois, Andrine, Alain, Remile, Muriel. All of these sound very French to me. So same thing with a different algorithm. Looking for French names. Pierre, Reginette, Mathieu, Albertrand, Richard, Gabrice, Jean-Pierre, Ghislaine, Baptiste, Rolange, Germaine, Sandra, Fabrielle, Camille, Thierry. They sound good. And we can do this for days and days and days. Now, I just happened to catch, because I'm not paying too much attention, but Air Techie says, can we create data sets for it to reference? I don't see why not. I just don't know how to include them. There is the guy who wrote this, now this has been here for a while, is very cool. He says, write me emails. He's got his email address on the bottom of the page. And if you could put together a complete data set, I'm sure you could do it. I don't know personally how you would get it into this, but you get the idea. Okay, now, I know I'm kind of making a point here probably harder than I need to, but let's say we got a German one. So we're gonna turn on German first names, turn off the French. We're gonna turn on German towns. So German forenames and German towns, we want a German planety kind of thing. And let's see, we'll start with the back off algorithm on. Ready? Here we go. Wow, some of these are tough to pronounce. Arnescheid, Geschnack, Manneberg, Stolbergen, Fusseldorf, Troisdorfen, Wuppenheim, Osternheim, Wassen. It seems to like it better without the back off for a lot of these names here. Fürstadt, Hernberg, Munstadt, Conrad, Hellendorf. Let's turn the back off, and we'll run it again at a high level order of 4. Here we go. Werten, Werder, Hessington, Esterwald, Sasser, Gottschatz, Sonnebeck, Bunden, Wenzenau, Ryder, nah, not that one so much. Nordenhorn, nah, I don't like that one either. Plauenberg, Ronach, Helger, Metzen, Olberg, Gersfeld, Penzlau, Warst, Badenberg, Dessen, Ottenberg, Luding, Almuth, Flenstein, Oberdorf, and so on. Now, why am I going to all of this trouble? Well, I'm doing it because there is a noticeable lack of two things that we see all the time, every day. And you never see these things, hardly ever, in science fiction. And they add an awful lot of realism. One of them, as I mentioned, is signage. There's there's very few shows that go to the trouble to develop like an economy with actual companies. We'll get to company names in a minute. The other thing you hardly ever see are names. You get the name of the planet most often, but you don't get any of the towns or the places or locations or where they beam down and stuff. And somebody mentioned, that what happens if it's not all settled by Germans or Americans or whatever, and that will be the case in many cases. Then we can start mixing up some other things. Marisha wanted to know if we could make a Discord channel to collate all these name submissions. Not yet, Marisha. Anybody can play with whatever they want. Actually, why not, right? I mean, why not? We have Spanish, we have all these other things. And when I was going after American cities, I would mix American forenames and American states. And then I decided I'm going to add Spanish forenames and American cities just to give us a little bit of that kind of, Mexican border kind of a sound. And then I did it with, what did I use? Something else. Irish. The Irish didn't work at all. But something to Italian names, so, and all this other stuff. So the reason this is important to me is because, hey, love you too, Revolver Taco. It's a nice thing to say. The reason these things are important to me is because this has I think the word that I learned, and I should be ashamed of, isn't it verisimilitude? It has the appearance of, it has the sound of. So it gives you a sense that this has actually been done by people, and this is why I wanted to open this whole thing up to all of you guys and Space Engine and all the rest, because it's nice to know that of the 76 moons in this thing, it's not called, D7. It's just, it's Auerbach. It helps. Now, just because I'm not going to stay on this all night, but there are some interesting combinations that you can do to come up with things. Now, one of my favorite things to play with is coming up with the name of alien animals. So instead of turning animals on, I'm going to turn on animal sounds. Okay, just animal sounds, and I'm going to add something else here. Now I don't know how this is working. I'm ad-libbing here. But I'm going to combine I'm looking for the name of a mean kind of a predator, right? Something that sounds, just the second you hear it, you don't want to run into this thing. So I'm going to go with animal sounds, and I'm going to add theological demons, because those are bizarre. So I'm looking for my nasty predator. We'll give it a couple runs just for giggles, and then we'll see. Ready? All right, we're looking for something with big pointy teeth. Push the button, Frank. Okay. I can see already that this is not working, at least with the back off, turned off. It's just mung. So I'll turn it on. I'll see if we get any better results. No. And the problem is the problem is the theological demons. They're just too weird. So let's find something a little more friendly. They've got werewolf forenames, or they also have old weapons. So let's try animal sounds and old weapons for something. Give us a little bit of a scare on a dark night. Let's try this. Well, we're getting some interesting animal names here. Whether they're, I'll just show you what I see here. A cheaper, a skreek, gibbered, a bryap, a moot. Here's one. A stiletto claw, a drumpet, perk, most of these are a little too literal, so I'm not quite on the sweet spot yet. So let's try the same thing. Order for animal sounds and weapons. We'll turn back off, algorithm off, try again. Yeah. Get a hander, a basta, but I'm not liking these. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to turn the order down, and give the total number of letters down to 9, because the more letters it has, the more it'll use, and it can get a little clunky. So same two search things, animal sounds and old weapons. We'll start with the back off on, because we get fewer results that way. Oh, now we're getting something. A flail, a wook, a Greek, a bastaff, a kite bow, a bludgehaw, a groak, quackle, a trill owl, and I like the owl, like settlers say, it's like an owl that's trilling. It's a trill owl. A manse, a flammer, rourke, a lowl. Let's turn the back off. Try again. Yeah. These still are not quite what I want. I want something meaner than this. I mean, I get some stuff here that's not bad, like a Boeing or a, but it's, I just need to, I'm going to turn off old weapons, and I'm just going to go with animal sounds and animals. We'll do one more thing after this, then we'll move on, although I don't know what to. All right, so change the words, the base, animal sounds and animals. Yeah, now we're talking. A cheehawk, let's see, a mackin, a trilby, kingar, a woot, a gring. Anyway, you can play with this forever. I'm still trying to find that combination of animal sounds and something really mean. And I was playing with this before, and I had it too. And I cannot seem to find out what it is. Maybe it's, there is a fantasy monsters. All right, let's try animal sounds and fantasy monsters. Yeah, with our order low and relatively short. A Zandark, a Nomit, a Browler, a Rate, a Goble, one of them is Rats. So you get a bunch. I'm going to do with the back off on, and then we'll do one more quick thing with the name thing. Yeah, it's not really giving me what I want. I just want to find that sweet spot, because when you can do that, it really does kind of just come alive. And I understand this is not exactly the most riveting of content, but I think it's actually kind of important. So I'll try one more and we'll see. Something. When you do the Norse stuff, it's just phenomenal. It's just so tremendously cool. All right. Well, for giggles, I've never tried this. We'll try snakes, common names, and animal sounds. A ball adder, a ratter, a trumper. Let's turn it back up. So the point is, you can do this all day. A chatler. I don't remember what it was, but honestly, I had one set up just right. Oh, sorry about that. I don't think I can change that now, the Dart mission thing, but I will fix it when I save it. Yeah, it was my fault. I was just I panicked. So that's this. Now, one more thing I want to do is I want to look for, well, two more things I want to do is I want to look for two really specific things. I want the name of a drug, a futuristic drug, right? That's the first thing I want. So I'm going to go to, what's it called? Emotions. I'm going to turn on emotions, going to turn off animal sounds. I want the name of a drug, and I'm going to add personality traits. Now, most of this will be garbage, but some of it won't. So I'm looking for like a soma, right? Something like that. Something that would be distributed to the masses, that kind of thing. Space crack, exactly. And Carson got it right. Melative, let's see. Yeah, I'm not really liking these. So let me, ordinal's not bad. Let's put the back off on and see what happens if we do that. Quietic. Nope, not liking these. So maybe the order is not high enough. Let me go up one more. Sordinary is kind of cool. Venturous, concived. None of these are really ringing my bell. Turn this off. We'll go to a lower level of order, and we'll try it one more time. Vacious, emotic. Because that's kind of what I'm looking for. Something, that sounds like they're handing it. Pervis. Every now and then you land on one and it makes the whole thing worthwhile. That hasn't happened yet. All right, so since this is all essentially dead air, I'm going to turn on the back off thing. I'm going to try it one more time, and after that we'll give it a ring. Maybe turn, let's turn off the personality traits, and we'll just go with emotions. Just hodgepodge some emotions out, see if that works better. Euphoria, gladness, trustasy. See, these are the ones. When you really get down to it, you can tell when you've got these things combined just right, all of a sudden they start to make sense. Trustasy. This guy, guy needs some trustasy. He's just all over the place. Let's see. X-alarm. Feriality. Dishappy. Not feeling good? Get you 10 let me get you 10 milligrams of dishappy. Zealousy. And some of these are interesting emotional states too. As long as you don't overdo it, it can make the thing sound kind of futuristic. As long as the meaning is clear. Lustasy. Yeah, I got a feeling how that's going to work and what it's going to do. Yeah, kids are doing lustasy all day down there now. Get off of my lawn. And tempt. Let's try it with the back off, and then we will put this thing away for the time being. Jovial, impassion, attraction. None of these are super great. Defeation, polity, tyrannity. Like I said, when you see them, you know. X-alarm, ration. Just because I'm a nut, I'm gonna. I've turned the order down now to 2. This is the lowest we've ever had it. Worryation. Let's see. Turn back on. So the point of all this is you can do this forever, and I have. I've just put a ton of time into trying to find out what these things are, and what I think I'd like to do is to basically say when we start farming out some of this stuff, planet names and stuff. I think what we could do is we could say, okay, so here are the databases that you can kind of use from. Turn that off, and I'll just try personality traits, because I was getting really cool really cool stuff that was working itself into dialogue in a weird sort of way, kind of thing that sounded like guys on a truck would be talking about. Excitive. Innovable. Oh, that's a little tough. Okay. Yeah, some of these are proactive. Yeah. Anyway, trust me, it's really fun, and there are so many different things to mix. And as I said before, I'm going to close this now because this can be very addictive for me. As I've said before, there are different structures in terms of the order, and then there are different data sets. But when you are looking for something specific, like I was looking for an American high-tech company, so I would go with American companies and like atomic elements or particle physics. Then you'd start getting all of these wicked cool names. So that was basically it. So I think I have one thing to show all that seemed a little blocky. We did that planet test last time, and since then I have been working on custom. Those were planets that were kind of pretty much out of the box. So let me see if I can just find these guys here. I did a couple where I spent more time, describing them, trying to get them closer to what I wanted to see. Put them in. You go to movies. Yeah. Okay. So this one's it may skip. It seemed to skip a bit, but just to give you an idea, this one I spent a little more time on. It doesn't look quite right to me. I think there's too much atmosphere. It's not shiny enough. It's just a little chalky, a little pastel-y. But it's getting there. And I have one of a water world somewhere. I don't know if I got that done. Hang on. Last quick little check here. Anyway, the water world I put into that thing that we did earlier. So anyway, you get the idea. It's somebody says it's too brown. It looks better up close, by the way. I did a version of this where we're in orbit above it, and that looked really, really solid. I just didn't bring it with me tonight. So this is stuff we got to get right for it to work. So that's the result of me fooling around for probably, I don't know, 45 minutes on something like that. Now, when I come in next time, and I'll have it posted before we do the show, that is what you just saw is done by a planet generator. It's a procedural thing, and you're messing around with the variables and ice cover and what's the sea level and all this jazz. When I come next time, I'm going to have a number of planets that are done by artists that are just created specifically to look awesome, and they do. So there's that as well. Okay, let's see if we got any questions here. We'll just do this at Facebook, I think, because I always just end up shorting Facebook so badly. So let's see if we got any on the Facebook page, and after that we'll go to billwhittle.com if there are any. There we go. Hang on a second. No. Good friend of mine's father died. Okay, so let's see. This may be a real short trip. I don't see any on Facebook. I really don't. All right, that was easy. There were a bunch on the asteroid thing, but I think that's pretty much done. So let's go see what we have at billwhittle.com. And like I said, I got kind of a sick cat tonight, and I've been talking a lot, so I may just make this one a little bit shorter. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of stuff was. We talked about this on the Stratosphere line and stuff. It's a tough couple weeks with the Biden speech, and that guy running over that guy was not fun at all. Stratopop questions. Super. All right, and thank you to Marusha Dark again for curating this thing and set it up. So again, it's not just animations, not just the colonies. This is kind of our pop culture channel, so we're kind of trying to build that up. Okay, so GK Masterson, why do you think our pop culture has gotten so crude over the past 30 to 40 years? Does the ability to distribute pop culture to the people en masse have anything to do with it? That's a really, really interesting question. I can just kind of give you my stream of consciousness on this, which is pretty much all we ever do anyway. So things used to be things were much more polite. You had to wear, a suit and a tie to get on a jet, and everybody had to dress up just to go outside, and that kind of thing. So it was a lot less casual than it is now. And I thought, okay, is that a line? And it's actually not. I mean, if you look at like Roman times, there was an awful lot of vulgarity, an awful lot of debauchery, a lot of immorality, and just plain all-around viciness. There's something about declining cultures, and I think probably what it has to do with is that when you have the kind of security, physical security that we've had in America for 70 years now, we're not in particularly any danger of getting sniped or mortared as we go down to the supermarket. When all of that external danger and all of that threat goes away, it I actually had a really good point here, just flew right out of my head. I'll just fix this in post. I hate it when that happens. It'll come back to me. So why has it gotten cruder? I don't think it's got anything to do with the ability to distribute it to large numbers of people. I think that it's just a question of, I remember. When you have, right now we have endless 24-hour entertainment. You will never run out of entertainment. In the amount of time it takes you to watch one video or a half a video on YouTube, another 5,000 have been uploaded, right? There's no end to this thing. And since we are constantly saturated by, input, entertainment type input, the only way to really make an impression is to turn it up to 11, is to do something that will grab your attention in this infinite sea of choices, of clicks. And there's no doubt in my mind that if you look at the TikToks for a lot of these, some of these trans teachers bragging about what they can do in their classes and stuff, the pandemic in this country, I've said before, is it's narcissism. And it is the selfie generation and this worship of the self and this sense that I will, anything I do is kind of okay so long as I get, views and followers and clicks and stuff. And of course, there's, some microscopically small number of people. It's probably about the same percentage as there are professional athletes who are professional influencers. It's one of my least favorite words. And those people have to not only stand out against the other influencers, but they got to stay ahead of themselves. They got to be fresh, right? And there's no way to, paradoxically, if Madonna wanted to get my attention, I wouldn't have her dress frumpily. I would just have her dress elegantly, Madonna would get my attention if she wasn't trying so hard to get my attention. And that is, I think, just endemic and gets worse every day. It's kind of like, whoever, whatever singer, you may be talking about, you come out and you've got your vocal range, whatever that vocal range may be. But to be honest with you, if you come out and start at, the highest or the next to highest note that you possibly got, then it's just monotone. And it seems to be like we're rapidly heading for that place. We did a virtue signal. Zoe brought in a virtue signal on these two women that were not only just over the moon delighted about their abortions, but wanted to live stream it and that kind of thing. Now, that is pretty much pure evil, and some element of it is the look at me, right? Look at me. Somebody asked about why don't I get on TikTok? I believe I will. I'm working on a bunch of things, trying to do things differently because the delivery systems are changing fast, and short form comment is one of them. So it's a new fit. But when those two women were having that conversation, I believe that they believed it, and I do think they believed the horrible things they were saying. But I also could tell that on some level they could feel the spotlight on them. Like, look at me, look at me, look at how outrageous I am. All of this, all of the body modifications and the people tattooing the whites of their eyes, the sclera. I can't even imagine how that feels. I imagine you've got to be knocked out for that. But, obviously piercings everywhere, tattoos everywhere. And on the far extreme of that, you've got the people with the multiple implants under the skin that look like horns or bumps, and they've split their tongue, and it's like, okay, yes, you've got my attention for, 15 seconds. And now I'm bored. And especially, look, I know there are times when I talk about things and it just makes me sound like such an old, kind of guy. Apparently Eric said I go back to Facebook and click newest. I didn't see any of them. I'll check it if I can. I'll probably stay here for the time being. Anyway, what happened? Did we? I've lost my picture. Hang on. Nope. All right. I'm going to do the USB thing. Stay with me as I have my my surprise face on. Hey, there we go. Nothing. Up. Come on, you son of a... I have no idea what's causing this. It's never happened before. One more time. All right, something's. Here's I still see output levels, so hopefully you can still hear me. I'm going to just go back and switch the plugs on the USB. Sometimes that snaps it out of it. Come on, you miserable low-life swine. Video capture device. I may have to reload this. Logitech Brio. No. All right. Hang in there. Okay, I got to wake this camera up. I know everybody's talking about the worst produced show on the internet and all the rest of it. I don't know why this happens. It just does. Right now I'm trying to wake up the camera. Hang on a second. Come on. Okay, so I got it there on QuickTime. Now, if I reload the video capture device, hang on, let me delete the old one. Yes. And now I'll add one. Where is he? Video capture device. Add source. I want to use the Logitech Brio. Hey, hey! Done. Just drag this baby over there. That was fun, wasn't it? Dave Olson says the camera's not asleep, it's just pining for the fjords. So anyway, I think that's why GKY things are coarse. It's a screaming match for your attention, and everything's turned up to 12 now, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. But I tell you what I do see. I do see large numbers of people that are so, it's reached a point where it's so almost like universally disgusting and annoying that people are moving away from it. And I remember what I was saying before the camera went out. Hey, howdy from Northwest Texas. Hey, Rob. Yeah, good to see it. So the tattoos thing, right? There's been like an epidemic of them. I've never been a fan of tattoos. That's just me. And it's when I grew up. Okay, fine. A lot of people had tattoos, but now young women they're just completely covered in these things, completely covered in them. And I see this, and these are like teens, early 20s. And I don't want to walk up to them and shake a stick at them and tell them, how things were back in my day. But I do look at this and I think to myself, it would be nice if they had some kind of a parent or somebody who would do that, because as a guy who was at one time a teenager myself, I can tell you that my skin's not in the condition that it used to be. And when this stuff, because some of it's very, very fine detailed, and it's just everywhere, it's all over them. When this stuff starts to bleed, when it starts to, they're just going to be, I'm serious now. I am serious. I've had this thought before too. Anybody who could come up with a foolproof method of tattoo removal, and I'm talking about big, dark ones. If you could find a way to get rid of those, you're going to make a lot of money in the not too distant future. And for the same reason that we just talked about with the question, right? People want tattoos because they stand out. They go, oh, look, that's a really cool tattoo. Let me see your tattoo. Talk about your tattoo. Great. Now everybody has tattoos. So who becomes interesting now? Now, the person you become that's interesting is the person that is doing something different, which is the person that doesn't have tattoos. And unfortunately, unlike piercings, this is a one-way street. And I am very, look, I don't lose sleep over it, but I do see just the area, the total amount of tattooed area is just getting so huge that, I think they're going to regret it, and I don't want people to regret things. Dave Olson says the hummingbird will start looking like a buzzard when you're 60. Honey buns, yeah, and probably before then too. Okay. Anyway, so that's that. Let's see. Chris Taylor. All right. Last week you suggested that perhaps seemingly unprofitable woke entertainment is making its creators money from Chinese and or transnational organizations who see it as an investment weakening the American public. Then when asked about Up for mental exercise, you discussed that you have only received a physical threat, once received a physical threat, and that was from a conservative. Daily Wire security and experience with physical threats and your personal resolve not to live in fear of tyranny, except I'd asked if you put thought into the most efficient way your operation could be disrupted, not the most case-selected way. Okay. After spending billions to hollow out American culture, this guy, Chris, is a serious guy. I really like this. Hollow out American culture and replace it with self-destructive TikTok videos. I'm getting conflicting advice. Which do you think would be a more likely Red Chinese response to you attempting to fill that culture with wholesome, positive stories? 1, a Sea Dragon assault team is sent to assassinate you on American soil. Not fond of that option. 2, a young woman who is taking film classes begins working as a volunteer, doing good work on model meshes and other mundane tasks. It's the honey trap. To encourage a future conservative filmmaker, you find the money to bring her in as a paid intern over the summer. After the first week, she has to speak to you in private, tells you a sob story about her family, have to go back home on short notice, asks you not to tell anyone. I really like him. This is turning into quite a novel here. She leaves the room crying, collects her things. You're shortly thereafter arrested for sexual assault. That's not where I thought you were going with this. Other co-workers witness the two of you go into a closed room and have her emerge crying and immediately quit. Damning emails sent from your account provide evidence that you are trying to extort favors from her for the internship. Stratosphere Studios is sued out of existence. There's another paragraph, but my immediate response is, my God, I can only dream of being that important to have somebody go to that kind of trouble. I'm not trying to be flip with you. Really, that's a lot of work. I'm not worried about your personal resolve not to live in fear of physical assault. Do you have the personal resolve to cultivate the habit of always locking your computer and devices even if you've only stepped away for a moment? I do not. Maintaining robust password security? Nope. Keep an ironclad rule to never ever be alone in a closed room with a subordinate? No. Foregoing outdoor air conditioning to headquarter your work in a place where the legal system and jury pool won't be stacked heavily against conservatives or outright corrupt. In other words, moving out of California. That, Natasha and I have had some serious talks about in the last couple of days, since we had this last conversation on the Stratosphere Lounge, I think. Obviously, can't be afraid to do business and employ people, but you should talk with other previously targeted conservative businessmen about such mundane but important details, and also get somebody really low down and underhanded to help you with the other R-selected Op4 thought experiments, maybe Clavin or your viewers here. This is, again, profoundly good advice, and what I'm about to say, Chris, is not by any means an attempt to negate what you're saying, because it's all very serious and very real, and I deeply appreciate you pointing it out. But, and again, I'm not saying I won't do any of these things, but my gut feeling is I don't want to live like that, you know? I mean, I just don't. I really, I think I'd rather be put out of business than to be, so not afraid, really. Careful, that's the word I'm looking for. I don't want to be that careful all the time. Now, obviously, with that said, we get this thing off the ground, then we're going to have guys who do nothing but computer security. We're going to have guys that do nothing but, like the cybersecurity, locking the doors on that kind of thing. Your point about like an intern or something like that is, of course, possible. And I suppose it's possible to constantly record conversations. And maybe, in fact, I would say it's likely that is the world that we are not only moving into, but the world that we do live in. At the same time, acquiescing to it empowers it. It fiats it into existence. I think I could. I guess what I'm trying to say, Chris, is there are of the entire list of things that you've mentioned. There are some things they're so low hanging fruit that they're not even on the ground. They're kind of half buried. So those things, obviously, like computer security and stuff like that. And then as you move up the scale of intrusiveness into your day-to-day life, let's put it this way. There are a lot of people out there who want to be really, really rich. And I don't want to be really, really rich. I would like to have enough money so that I didn't have to worry about things anymore. But if you're really, really rich, you have to live like this all the time. My friend Steve Stipp was a limo driver in Orlando, and I think I mentioned before that Steven Spielberg was coming down there a lot in the 90s, I guess, to help put in Universal Studios down there. And he kept asking for my friend Steve, and whenever Spielberg and his family would come, they'd have to get in separate cars, and you could see that the guys who were his bodyguards, you could tell they had, they're carrying either an Uzi or some serious hardware on them and stuff. And Spielberg and guys like Zuckerberg and, they have to live like that all the time. I don't want to live like that. And I think probably an interesting example of how famous or influential you could be, forget about the fact he's on a different side, is I'm actually curious to know what Seth MacFarlane's life is like, how much security Seth MacFarlane actually, has. So, in any event, let me give that some more thought. Okay, got another Chris Taylor question. Second time asking. We're going to have to go for third time on that one, Chris, but I will read it afterwards. Here's a technical question from George Freeland. When you noted the weathering looks off on parts of the old Armstrong texture is one of the reasons because it used a single pass of procedural noise. Not to knock on procedural noise, it's a great labor-saving device for texture artists, but one of the issues that's especially visible when scale factor is turned up is that it starts to look like a regular pattern even though it doesn't actually tile and repeat. Something like using a second noise map at a different scale to subtract from the first noise map, see the image, thank you, would help to break up the pattern in cases like this. And hey, look at that. Yes, there is, George, there's a grunge setting. It's actually called that in this new Blender plugins I've got. And my problem is, now the thing you saw wasn't procedural, it was all hand painted, but to weather it, to age it, he put on he just took the grunge, airbrush and just grunged it. And I was looking at things, real world things, and I'll tell you what I looked at as a reference. I looked at what does it look like on board a container ship? Because that's essentially what we're dealing with, was container ships. So I took a look at a couple videos of people who went, sometimes you can actually go for, I wouldn't call it a cruise, but you can rent a cabin on a container ship and see the world that way. It's not terribly luxurious, but it's kind of, I think I'd rather do that than be on a gigantic, cruise ship with 2,000 other wonderful people. But when I looked at the container ship, I saw everything was absolutely immaculately painted. There was no weathering on anything. The paint was either new or really well maintained. It was much, much cleaner, the exterior surfaces, than I thought they would be. And weathering is like greebling. For those of you who are kind of here for the first time, when greebling started with that stuff right behind me there, with 2001: A Space Odyssey. When they made those models, especially the model of Discovery, they wanted to make you think this is a really huge ship. So the model was like 13 feet long or longer. Maybe it was even longer than that. So that a big model. But what they did was they put these little tiny little things, little wheels, little boxes, little pipes, all this other stuff. And when you put that on the surface, it tells your brain that since I know what a pipe is, and since I know what, maybe like a turbine is or something, and I see how small they are scattered all over the surface, greebling subconsciously tells your mind that this must be something big, because I can see the individual parts that it's made out of. And the Enterprise from the original series TV show has none at all, none. It's just plain flat white. It's actually a kind of a neutral gray. It's more gray than you would believe. But the Enterprise on the original Star Trek is completely patternless. When they got to the movies, they couldn't greeble the hull because you can't have bumps on this. I mean, that's just, you're out of the design thing. You start doing that, and now you're looking at Star Wars ships. So it still had to have smooth surfaces, but what they did was they did something that is called either paneling or Aztecing, where if you looked at the movie, yes, the surface is smooth now, but it's made up of just tons, thousands of little panels that are slightly different colors, slightly different, reflectivity, to give you to tell your eye that these things were welded together, so this thing must be massive. And this is a problem because stuff in the real world doesn't weather that way. And so on one hand, to do it realistically, it would just essentially be your entire surface would consist of painted metal. You'd have a white painted metal and you'd have red painted metal for a trim. And that's actually what I'm going to try. Just that. Now, one thing you can do to give you the sense of scale is you can go with clean painted metal, and then you can do an awful lot with details like like handles or little lights, but mostly with decals. Right? Decals will go a long way. Putting hash marks on stuff and little warning things, and all of that stuff. All that together really helps the main problem. And the main problem is texture artists and modelers and animators, all of us, are trying to find a way to tell you, without you thinking about it, that this thing is big and not just this big as it would be in a really bad science fiction novel from a long time ago. It doesn't even exist now, obviously. It's just a series of mathematical points in space. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, when I looked at that Armstrong texture, I'll bring it in here just for the sake of the argument. I have to say what I said before. Whoa, that's unusual. Where did it go? I don't think I've ever had that happen before. Okay, I'll try it one more time if that doesn't work. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. That's a terrific texture, and I love it, and I'm very, very happy with it. Make it a little bit bigger. But it, if you get in close, it looks like a computer texture, and it looks like, with the exception of the metal on the back, that burned metal is perfect. It's perfect, and I can't even talk about this without constantly having to jump in there and say that this guy did a fantastic job. It's all hand painted. But if you see that yellow box on the side there, you can see that dark gray underneath the blue stripe, and those two other panels. That's got computer-generated noise on it, and it looks like noise. It looks like computer noise, and I think we've just gone too far with this. Now, obviously, from the way you phrased your question, you obviously have a trained eye. So if you've got a toolbox of all these tools, and you continually use the same tools, then you develop a kind of like a baseline. And for people who spend a lot of time looking at this, which is guys like you and me, and audience members don't spend this kind of time or detail. I don't know how much of it. I think most people don't know, can't see, and probably don't even care. But that's not who you're making things for. You're making it for the people that do care. So I think we've gone too far into the here's how we make things look bigger. We're gonna put a weather on it. One thing that's real common, it's built into shaders now. A shader's a texture. It's kind of an active texture that you can apply to things. I just saw it earlier today. So here's a cube, right? You got a cube, and you slap this texture on it, and it's painted metal, blue metal, but it will automatically, right on the edges, it'll go to silver, like it's been brushed off. And you can set that and make it bigger. You can make the scratches bigger. You can make the dirt less, more, and all of these things are effective tools. But here's what it is. It's not that I don't want to use them, George. It's that I don't want to be seen using them, and that's an important distinction. When we would talk about a movie that's over-directed, actors would say, "Look, Ma, I'm directing," and you all know what "Look, Ma, I'm directing" looks like, right? It's like anytime I can't think of an exception. There may be one. Anytime I see a camera circling around two people that are having a conversation, it's like, "Oh, look, Ma, I'm directing. Look how dynamic it is." Every time I see that, all I think of is, man, the props guy and the focus guy are got to be hauling butt behind this dude. Make sure they don't step into the shot. It's not my style. Some people love it. Handheld camera became common once we started to get reality TV, so it's 20, 30 years now. And now most movies shoot some kind of a handheld stuff. Okay, I personally don't like it. I like being on the sticks or on a dolly. But handheld camera does give you the verisimilitude. It gives you the appearance of being spontaneous. And when you apply a handheld camera to computer animation, it's even more effective. And if you apply a handheld shaky camera to a photographic plate, and then you superimpose CG element over it, and it's doing the bumping too, then it's, it's as good as it's going to get. But yeah, so that's it. So I want it to look as good as I can. I want to use all the tools I can, but I don't want it to look like, look, Ma, I'm texturing kind of thing. So there's that. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to, got a couple from Rusha. I'm only going to be able to take one, so we'll take the first one. Word choice and persuasion. On Thursday, you brought up Josh Hawley's interview with the archival nominee and how she felt conservatives use smaller words because they think we're stupid. This actually sounds like no, it's pop culture. I just want to make sure the political stuff stays, kind of over there. This is a little bit political. You want to repost that? I'll get to that Thursday. Let's see what the other one has to say. Hey, Bill, Mersh again. In your previous stream, you mentioned you really enjoyed Star Trek Voyager, to which you sort of scoffed and rolled your eyes at the idea. I know you're a huge fan of the original series, and I don't disagree. It's really awesome. And I know you also said you've no problem with other people wanting to watch stuff. It's none of my business. But can you help me understand what you yourself don't like about Voyager specifically? I could outline my case for why I think it's great, but I know you tend to not like essays, so I'll table that for another time. Fantastic, thank you. The first word that comes to mind, look, I didn't hate Voyager, and compared to what's out there now, it's a masterpiece, right? But when I think about, the first word that came to my mind as I read this question was transitory. And that may have to do with the way the show is structured, right? So you get the Voyager, it gets accidentally sent to some other quadrant, and it's got a long way to go home, which means it's constantly traveling through new places and all the rest of this stuff. Now, in the original series, you're going to explore brave new worlds. That's great, but you have the Federation behind you, and you can world build out the Federation, right? Over the course of time, you realize, well, here's a star base, and this is what the admirals look like, and here's a court-martial, and here's another Enterprise-type ship, and here's a fleet action, and all that stuff. And Voyager is on a beeline from one place to another, and it doesn't let you build up any permanence, which is ironic because Deep Space Nine is the exact opposite of that, and another show I'm not particularly fond of. Deep Space Nine has too much permanence. Look, I know there are huge fans who are going to start an enormous flame war here. I'm not saying Deep Space Nine is not good or anything like that. I'm just saying it's not my cup of tea because it doesn't move. And so that's why I just think they're, a little, yeah. And I'm not particularly big fan of Generations either. So Next Generation, I just think that I never bought into Jean-Luc Picard. I liked some of the other characters. Thought Data was great, but every time I saw him, I just thought, oh, he's going to sip his Earl Grey hot, is he? All right, well, that you enjoy your time there in your captain's ready room with your Earl Grey hot, and the reason you're sipping tea is because James T. Kirk was out there with phasers, bumping off the guys that would have disturbed your respite. So, I'll tell you what my main problem with Next Generation is, and it's easy, and that is the Enterprise D. That is the ugliest creature of all time. It's not got a round saucer, it's got an oval saucer, but by far, Enterprise D looks like a cheetah that had its hind legs atrophied or amputated. It's just got no balls to it. It's got nothing that says power to me. It's tiny little warp nacelles, and they're down low, and it's like, okay, all right. Now, I know that they specifically designed Enterprise D to be more camera friendly. There apparently were a lot of problems shooting the original Enterprise in terms of getting angles. However, I saw something that was very compelling, and I took a look at the original Enterprise and how the original Enterprise is actually designed onto the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds are real good. Right now, I'm just doing a webcam, so I'm kind of in the center of the frame. If I was going to make this a movie shot, I would be over here, and I'd be looking like that. So I put myself on the third, and I'd actually put my eyes up here. That's how I'd compose a movie frame. Except I was looking the wrong way. Yes, sorry. That's how I would do it, something like that. So if you look at the original Enterprise, and it's boom, 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 it's right on those lines. The design, and this is another reason I don't like Voyager. It's got the little tiny rear end, and it's got this elongated saucer. Now, I've obviously seen that that's the direction. Enterprise F is elongated. They're trying to get away from the saucer because the saucer looks kind of clunky. And when you think about it, honestly, the original design of the Enterprise, that is a bizarre looking ship, right? It's just strange, but somehow it works. And when you see the Enterprise, the movie Enterprise, the Enterprise class, not the Constitution class, when you see that thing leaving space dock, that is just as regal and as magnificent as any spaceship has ever been. It blows Discovery out of the water. When it became Enterprise A, I think this Enterprise A, B, C, D thing is just nonsense. Just Enterprise. When Enterprise is destroyed, right? So we had a first nuclear aircraft carrier was USS Enterprise, decommissioned not too long ago. Now one of the new Ford classes, not the next one, the one after that's going to be USS Enterprise. Not going to be USS Enterprise 9 or Enterprise Q or anything. Just, I don't know. I guess they had to do it because at the end of, what was it, Voyage Home, Search for Spock? I don't even remember. It's like, oh, well, the Enterprise has been destroyed, and they come over the, are we going to get the Excelsior? And then you see, ooh, Enterprise, and it's like 1701A. Okay, all right. So in the comment section here, same questioner, interrogator, you might say, Marusha Dark says, Bill, what do you think of Janeway as a character and a captain? I actually like Janeway. I thought Janeway was a character. I couldn't tell you a thing about Chakotay. I couldn't tell you a thing about the guy I can't even remember. Is it Wong? The Asian ensign? I thought Paris was kind of had a little bit of charisma. But Janeway, I thought Janeway handled the authority really well. Janeway is what Admiral, whatever her name was, Nardo or whatever, in The Last Jedi, the purple hair runway model, Harry Kim, yeah. Janeway is what that character should have been, but the Omega males that were writing that travesty, talking about Star Wars now, Last Jedi, they don't know what. I was thinking about this on the way in. They don't know what. Dave Olson says Admiral Sappho McPurplehair. That's the one. Holdo, yeah, Holdo. So these Gamma men, I almost said Omega men, but that actually sounds too cool. Lambda males or whatever, or the angry feminist woke females, think that authority is yelling at people, and they think that authority is being mean to people, getting in their face and insulting them, like Holdo does. She's just one of the worst characters ever written, and I have not watched a frame of The Rings of Power, but everybody's saying that about Guy Ladriel, the Barbie Berry, and she's just plain nasty to everybody. And these people think that's what manliness is. It's not. I was, these shorts, these YouTube shorts. I'm going to be doing some short stuff, and the shorts are, it's just like crack cocaine. It's just like, my God, I just can't stop watching them. And one of the reasons I couldn't stop watching was because every third or fourth one was a clip from Band of Brothers. And in the original, in the first episode, memory is the second thing to go. I forget what the first thing is. Yeah. So in Band of Brothers, it was an interesting casting choice. They cast David Schwimmer as this kind of super overbearing captain. Passes canceled, this and this, screw you, you did this, you screwed up, blah, blah, blah. And when he's running, he's shouting Geronimo, and he's running with his pistol in his hand. He's a paper soldier. Now, that was super effective. It's one of the best shows ever made. Band of Brothers. Pacific fell far, far, far below that, but it was a really bold choice using Ross from Friends. A really bold choice because that's a very, very familiar face. And I suspect on some kind of subconscious level, they were trying to get to the fact that I suspect this is why they cast him. Seeing his face, he's a great actor and he pulled it off great. He was fantastic in it. But seeing his face kind of takes you to like an urban place, right? You think of Ross and you think of the cafe and sitting on a couch, and he doesn't. He brings with him a sense of urban unseriousness, and I think that's probably why he worked. A couple of people said he looks like the real Captain Sobel too. But that character was loathsome, and he was written as a villain, and he was a very effective villain. He wasn't even a villain. Well, he was, but he wasn't a villain so much as he was the negative image of was it North? Yeah. What is his name? I'm telling you guys. Sometimes when I'm up too long, I'm telling you. I just forget things that I know, and it's really frustrating. I know it's already there, but I'm not gonna look. Winters, not West. Winters, yeah. So he's the anti-Winters, and that's why it's such great casting and why it works so well. You need the David Schwimmer character to show you what an inflated, puffed up peacetime soldier looks like, so that when you actually see an honest to God real soldier like Captain Winters, then you realize, okay, this is what war does, and this is why ultimately I'm hopeful for the future, because if things get bad enough, then people like Winters will step forward, and people like Sobel will go back into the box that they came from. And obviously one of the greatest scenes in that whole series is so Winters is, Sobel's yelling at him all the time. He's canceling his passes, canceling Nixon's passes. Then they go into Normandy, and Winters starts becoming this legend. And there's a scene where he's sitting in the Jeep, and Sobel walks by, and Sobel's with another guy, and the enlisted guy salutes, and Sobel walks by and says, Major Winters, just gives him a little nod. And Winters says, Captain Sobel, and he stops him and he says, "You salute the rank, not the man." And it's like, and it's perfect because Winters is not being a wimp and he's not being a dick. It's perfect. You salute the rank, not the man. I'm going to get a salute out of you, and I'm going to do it for the right reason. So, that's that. I'm going to do one or two more, and I'm getting a little tired here, and I'm not doing two from the same people, so, oh gosh, maybe I'll just do, I may have to ask you to bring him again. Okay, so here's Henry Lumley. I think maybe this will do it. Hey, Bill, here's another AI rabbit hole. There are a bunch of music videos showing up with AI-generated images. Here's a link to one for David Bowie's Space Oddity, if we can get it to show up correctly, and there's a link. Wow. So a couple of weeks ago, months ago now, I brought in some AI images using just a pocket AI, and wow. And the ones I got were really alien. I'm just kind of fast forwarding through this. This is shocking. It's really good, really good. So here's a Space Odyssey with the lyrics, and they put those lyrics into AI, and I'll see if I can just grab a frame for you real fast because it's pretty. Yeah. So this is just give me a second. I'll do a quick little frame grab. Come here, you. So the line that they sent to the AI is "Check ignition and may God's love be with you," and that's just striking. And it's just really impressive. Most AI is much more abstract than that, and I don't do it anymore. I haven't done it in weeks, months now, I guess. But there was a time there when I was spending a lot of time on that AI app, because the AI app was it was a completely alien intelligence. It's not a real intelligence, but it was coming from some. It's like seeing artwork from another planet, from an alien species. Nothing made any sense, although it did. It put things together in a way that you just couldn't imagine. I'm not going to go to the trouble of transferring to see if I have any of these on my. Doesn't look like it. Because after I did the Jack the Ripper stuff, I did. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. I did a bunch of others, and it's like the name generator before that we were doing earlier. It can produce astonishing results, but you need to know exactly how to refine the input, and you got to throw away 96% of it. So that's basically where we are right now. If you let these things go, they'll put together images in a way that just so strange, and at the same time, most of it is not there. That's actually almost worth an entire episode, to be honest with you, and not the AI aspect of it, the perception aspect of it. What is it that makes? Maybe I'll do that. Maybe next time I'll bring in a bunch of stuff that I did after the Jack the Ripper stuff. Some of it was really dark. For some reason, whenever I would try to make an optimistic image, a happy image, something, angels or heaven. This is kind of the point. They would just not work, and they wouldn't work because the AI is putting things together in such a way that just seems so unnatural that it seems wrong. When you, on the other hand, when you go in the other direction and you start trying to produce things that look wrong, there you go. Sorry. Rad Robot says some of it is nightmare fuel. It's almost all nightmare fuel. And so when you start going down the nightmare road, and I did on a lot of these things, then you get images that really can be quite impressive and shocking. But I could not get them to do anything nice. I did a bunch that I wanted to send to Doomcock. A bunch of I took Disney, I took Mickey Mouse, and then I took like fires and hell, and it came back with just wacky, nutty, kooky stuff. I'm gonna do one more, and I'm going home. I'm sorry to say, this one's only 2 hours. So again, sorry if I missed you. Cody Fett. Hey, Bill, looks like I came in last this week, so if you do get to questions, I'll probably be asleep when you read this. However, I wanted to ask you about stereotypes in media. Okay. I know you've said before that your opinion of anime as cheap was formed when you watched an episode of Astro Boy when you were a kid in the 60s. I'm sure that intellectually you know the production values have greatly improved over the last 60 years, just as intellectually I knew when I was young that not all live action American TV was reality. TV and crime shows, and yet both of us have held off on consuming either of those mediums because of those stereotypes formed years ago. One of the most common stereotypes in the media world today is that all Hollywood movies these days are superheroes, sequels, or remakes, but again, that's obviously not entirely the case. What do you think of these stereotypes? How do they form? How do you penetrate it? How do you manipulate them for your own ends? Great. It's a great question. Great final question. I forgive me for not remembering, Cody, if it was you who recommended said, hey, there's already been a science fiction series that was super hard sci-fi and dealt with actual laws of physics, and it's called Starship Operators. So I thought, great. So I went looking at Starship Operators, and obviously, even from the thumbnail, you can tell it's anime. But I gave it a chance, and in the middle of this space battle, I'm not making this up. You're in the middle of this space battle, and then you cut to the bridge of one of these ships, and it's nothing but a rear view of 6 or 7 Japanese girls who are 12 years old in their schoolgirl uniforms. That's the crew of the ship. And at that point, I just said, this is not my cup of tea. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not my cup of tea. And when we talked, I'm not saying it was you, Cody, I don't remember who asked the question, but when we were talking about Starship Operators and why, why is your show going to work when this didn't, and you were both using, really realistic aspects. And then I saw the fan service of these tiny-nosed, huge eyes, Japanese 12-year-old girls in uniforms running the ship. I said, well, I'm not going to have that. So there's going to be a fundamental seriousness and grittiness and reality and rough edgedness to this. Again, I don't want to dump on anybody's anime. It's not my business to do that. And I genuinely, let me put it this way. There is stuff out there that is dreck. It's just garbage. And it doesn't take any effort or any talent at all. And this was not that. This was clearly, really great animation, great art design. I just didn't like it. And the second I saw that, any sense of this being like a real kind of world would do it. I just don't like animated stuff, period. When I talk about animation, I'm talking about computer animation that's on the good side of the uncanny valley and is now, as we've talked about many times in the past, is now at the point where using things like deep fake, you are now manipulating, people have been saying photorealistic since computer animation has started, and I am sick and tired of hearing that this is a photorealistic texture, it's a photorealistic human, or it's a photorealistic this, a photorealistic that. The definition of photorealistic, as far as I'm concerned, is I cannot tell it's a computer-generated image. If you show me something and I cannot tell, Bill, is this real? Is this computer-generated? I don't know. That's photoreal. And there's an awful lot of people that have been trying to kind of sneak under that bar and sort of, ride that expression. And so it's not. But my point about where the state of animation is now, Unreal Engine with the metahumans produced what was at the time, 2 years ago, not even maybe, the best looking humans that you could get in a computer rendering. And then Unity did that demo, which was virtually, if you'll pardon the expression, photoreal. But when I look at deep fakes, I can still tell there's a little tiny bit, but when I look at deep fakes, I say this is I couldn't tell if this was, because it's not it's not rendering anything in the traditional sense of the word. We're not trying to recreate, Tom Cruise's face by having a few million vertices and little polygons and texture mapping. It's looks like Tom Cruise's face because it's his face. It's just a amalgamation of hundreds or thousands of images of his face. And I thought, wow, that was amazing. So I think that's that. Dick Richards says, LM laughing my ass off. What did Kubrick say 2 weeks before he died or was killed? Hint, I filmed the moon landing at my studio. Well, that proves it then, I guess, huh? I guess that's all the proof we need. I don't know whether you're serious or not, Dick, but just because this is like hitting me in the knee with a rubber hammer. I guess all those launches that me and millions of other people saw of these massive moon rockets, millions of people saw them. I guess that whole thing is just to get the camera crew to Stanley Kubrick's studio, I suppose. So since this is related to the question I just asked, I just answered, I'll close with this. Why is realism so important to you, Bill? Is in an inherently fictional medium. Science fiction should not look fictional. In fact, that's probably as good a working definition for my idiom, sir? My idiom, yes. I want science fiction that doesn't look fictional. And anything that does look fictional takes me out of it. There was something about the Enterprise, the bridge of the Enterprise, that, especially at the time, was coherent enough to work. But when you saw the Gorn, or you saw the salt monster, or you saw the ape, with the horn, the white gorilla, and stuff. Even as a kid, I'm out. I'm just silly, I mean, there he is, but it's a guy in a rubber suit. Same for the apes in Planet of the Apes. By the way, speaking of Kubrick and Reel and so on, in 2001: Space Odyssey, opening, it's probably half an hour, but it feels like 2. Opening scenes with the proto-humans, Moon Watcher, and these humanoids. They were actors in suits, and they were extremely gifted, probably more like dancers really than actors. And when the time for the Academy Awards came up, they gave the Academy Award for Best Makeup to Planet of the Apes. And I think people said that's because the people who saw 2001 just assumed those were, actual apes there. Okay, here we go. Now it's getting to be fun. Dick Richards says the word NASA is an ancient Hebrew verb for deception or deceive. Dick, respectfully, you have a space agency that, I'll take your word for it, has the same name as an ancient Hebrew word, but it's going to sound like something anyway, right? I mean, every word, take Bill, you can find, if you search all the languages of the word, you'll find something that sounds like it and so on. And this somehow outweighs 14 Saturn V launches. Just that. Forget about all the stuff that came before. This is, this is it. You'll have Bill go for an hour about going off about the moon landings. I don't need to say any more than that. Really, that's what it comes down to. If I have somebody who says, I faked the moon landing versus 14 launches of a 365-foot tall rocket that were seen by millions of people every single time, and the hardest part of getting to the moon is that rocket, then these things do not have equal weight. And the same thing goes for UFOs, right? Oh, there's alien technology at Area 51. Really? Yeah, I saw it. I touched the saucer. And Joe Rogan seems to kind of buy into this kind of stuff. Okay. But that's one guy saying this is what I saw. And the problems are so enormous that it just doesn't They just don't. They don't match. They're not even in the same ballpark. I suppose the lunar orbiter now, the lunar reconnaissance orbiter, which is now showing the landing sites of the Apollo missions, including all of the footsteps that need to be exactly where they are on the moon, and the descent stage of the LEMs. I suppose that's all fake too, but makes you wonder, if we didn't go, will we? Or is it impossible? Well, we'll probably hear something about the look at a moon lander for yourself. Well, you know what? If you can get yourself a membership, or just get the membership for $10 and then cancel it. But if you go to Daily Wire, you'll see something called Apollo 11, What We Saw. It's 5 hours of me telling the story of the space race from Chinese bottle rocket. It's nonsense that contraption was on the moon. Okay, well, I'm going to let that go. Although I must say that one of the things that I found most interesting about the lunar module, about that contraption, was that it had to be so light that the one example they've got at the Smithsonian is sitting on its legs, but that one has been reinforced because the LEM is so fragile that if you put it down on Earth, it would collapse under its own weight. It's built for 1/6 gravity. And I thought that was a nice touch. Anyway, yeah, what we saw is it, and the real thing is that the moon landing thing is the incrementalism, right? This is my entire argument in Apollo 11. Did Alan Shepard ride a suborbital flight? Yes or no? If he didn't, then did a V2 take a picture of space from a high altitude? Okay, so if the V2 took the actual picture, yes. And if Alan Shepard rode a Redstone into a suborbital flight, that happened. Glenn did orbital flight, that happened. We had 2 guys in Gemini, that happened. We had 3 guys in Apollo, that happened. Where is the break between the stuff that actually happened and the forgery? That's ultimately my argument. And the reason people say the moon landing was faked is because you just dumped the moon landing there without any context. But nothing that happened during the Apollo program or the programs leading up to it were leaps of a chasm, that stuff. I just think you study all the green screen footage. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Dick, I'm certainly not angry, or I'm not defensive on this one. Sometimes I am, because sometimes people come in with a completely different attitude. But I will just leave you with this last thing that I've used many times before. First of all, green screen, blue screen technology leaves all kinds of artifacts, but let that go. There is irrefutable evidence that this happened on the moon. It's in every single shot of any single motion picture shot, including Apollo 11, and they didn't. If the Eagle had landed on the pitcher's mound, then all of the walking around that Apollo 11 did is in the infield. With one exception, Armstrong walked about halfway out into right field and came back again. So it's a very small area. But even on that one, when you look at their feet, dust is flying off as if it's water. And we have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of the lunar rover spinning around and kicking off all of this dust. And the dust is flowing like water. And you cannot get that to happen unless you're in a vacuum. Now, there is a vacuum chamber on Earth, but its walls are thicker than Hoover Dam, and it's only big enough to get maybe the LEM in there. I've had many engineers tell me this, and I believe them. It doesn't seem to make intuitive sense, but it's absolutely true. It is easier to go to the moon than it is to build a studio of that size that's in a vacuum. And it has to be in a vacuum because of the way the dust is behaving. There's no computer graphics. If it was real dust and it was in the air, you'd get big billowy clouds. So the thing has to be in a vacuum. and it can't be. So there's that. Anyway, I think I'm about done for the night. Been a busy day. We struck an asteroid, gave it the back of our hand as a warning, you know, to encourage the others. And it was fun watching that thing hit at 13,500 miles an hour. Steered itself right in there. And I don't know if they have published the picture. Let me just check that, okay? Because I was hoping to see that during the live stream. I was hoping to see the Italian camera that followed it, took a picture of it hitting. Let me just see if they've released that yet, because they certainly didn't put it in the stream. That's funny. I have to say that's funny. On the Google search page, you're looking at the page, and then you see the dart thing fly across. If you go to Google right now, now's the time. It flies across and hits the right margin and knocks all the text off to the sides. That was kind of cool. Let's see if in images. Lots of close-ups of the asteroid, which is what we saw. But I don't see anything that looks like that. And I'm not going to waste your time with dead air finding out whether that thing worked or not. I hope it did. I'll check that when I hang up the show here. But we got another good close-up of, as I said on the stream, these comets look like, we think of them as like rocks, but they're not. They're actually collections of rocks. So that's Dimorphos. And all of these boulders you see are just essentially clumped together like a hive of bees. It's not solid. It's a collection of pebbles that's covered in dust. That's probably the best way to put it. All right. So I think that'll do it for me for the day. It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. And we'll have some new stuff when we come back next Monday. We'll have more political stuff on Thursday night with the Stratosphere Lounge. Observatory in Africa saw it brighten. I hope that they had the Webb on it. I don't know why they wouldn't have the James Webb on that. It's infrared. You would think it would have a tremendous picture. Anyway, so that'll do it. As always, this show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. It's fine people. Some of them have been with us since 2014. Many of you have been with us since 2014, and you allow me to say whatever's on my mind and to play with this lifelong dream and try and slowly drag it across the line from imagination land into the real world. So again, to all of our members, I'm grateful. Natasha's grateful. Stephen Scott, everybody here, constantly grateful for the support. And so that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Studios. And we'll be back on Thursday for Stratosphere Lounge. And I guess we will see you then.